This time on episode 509 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we discuss the 2024 Disney Plus show X-Men 97, Season 1, Episode 8, Tolerance is Extinction, Part 1.
I'm Damien the DM from Adventures in Aurelia, a collaborative storytelling experience told through a game of Dungeons & Dragons, part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other epically geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Raised on X-Men, empowered by the Avengers, strengthened by the Defenders, webbed by Spider-Man, adopted by the Fantastic Four, and forged by S.H.I.E.L.D. Stand by for your Marvel debriefing.
Now it's time for your Marvel debriefing. I'm Agent Michelle.
I'm Agent Chris.
And I'm producer of the show, Director SP. Welcome to the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. This episode is recorded on Saturday, May 4th, 2024. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Happy Free Comic Book Day. We're live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios and broadcast worldwide. Come and join our live chat as we record. And Michelle, what did we watch this week?
We watched Tolerance is Extinction Part 1. The X-Men unite to face a new threat.
All right, overall thoughts. Chris, what'd you think?
This is why I really like having the episodes come out one by one rather than the whole season dropping at once.
Michelle?
This is why Magneto is Magneto.
Magneto was right. I'm not sure what I just watched, and this was after the first viewing, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. We're going to start by talking about the main theme from the episode, which was one ginormous, multifaceted, 4-part fight. It was huge, Michelle.
I don't know where to start, but we have the Summers family going to find Bastion's family home, and we learn Bastion's origin about how he's future tech living from as a baby, timey-wimey stuff there. But we learn that he's created these humans that can turn into sentinels, and then the mom becomes one, and then the entire town is. And then they get into the Blackbird, and then all of them, fly after him. And then there's like so many of them. They start landing on the Blackbird, and then Scott is just like, "Oh, forget this. Let's just get into the porch." And apparently, that's the third Blackbird in as many months. So McCoy's going to be upset about that. And then we got the car chase, and there's firing, there's shooting, there's I-beams, there's psychic things, there's psychic driving. It is just a car chase. It's a plane chase, a car chase. It's everything.
I loved it. It was epic. That's the only word I can use to describe it. It was epic. From the, creepy town is after me, towards their escape. The one thing that I'll say, though, is that these mutant human sentinels, they have all the aiming skills of stormtroopers.
Which is good, because there's a lot of them. And you'd think even with stormtroopers, if you have 50,000 different people aiming at you, that one of them is going to hit something. And these people don't. And stormtroopers don't either. So I'm not sure what's up with their aiming. But just the fact that they can sit there and just think they're normal humans, nothing's going on. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I am Sentinel. Destroy all mutants.
They didn't hit the Porsche. They didn't hit the Blackbird. They didn't hit anybody of the Summers family. You go to the mall. They didn't hit Jubilee. They didn't hit anything, right? And they have this freaky, immediate healing capability and piece themselves back together, like pick up their head, put it back on their body, and everything's fine. They're destroyed. Wolverine is literally shredding them, and they're coming back together. Ew.
Well, if you take Wolverine's healing power, combine it with Deadpool's healing power, There's probably some other healing mutants. Just cram all that together. That can probably happen.
But that fight in order to save Rogue, where Wolverine's like, I got 6 of them, and then Nightcrawler comes in and is like, no, 9. And we got swords, we got claws. And as you said, the creepy putting each other back again. We have explosions that send them flying and setting the mansion on fire. So they're able to do that sort of deal. And they're able to physically hit. But you're right. When it comes to the beams and such, they are missing. But we still have great fighting, great animated fighting, just like throughout the rest of the season. We've got to give it up to the animators.
It was really good. It was. You had Scott tunneling through a mountain with his powers. You had all the individual fights. You had Wolverine going shirtless. You didn't mention that, did you? Wolverine going shirtless again. Of course, he loses his shirt during the fight, and he's just like, "I need to take care of this." So everything's falling apart. The whole world is just falling apart. We did get the saving Rogue fight at the mansion. We got the Summers family. We got the mall fight with Jubilee and Sunspot, right? And those were the 3 battles that were occurring. We also simultaneously had the axis of evil that was revealing itself for the first time. Michelle, you noted some of the characters that we got to see.
Yeah, we got to see Dr. Doom and Zemo as part of the axis of evil. We have other cameos, but those come later in the episode.
Yeah, and we find out that it is not the person that we thought was running everything. There's another evil bad that is Bastion that's running everything.
We've gone through this whole thing thinking, okay, it's Mr. Sinister, it's Mr. Sinister. Maybe it's Mr. Sinister and somebody else, but I never thought it would be Mr. Sinister for someone else.
And we also get a little bit more in depth on Dr. Cooper, who has quite the history in Marvel. We have not gone in depth on Dr. Cooper. There's a whole bunch of information. She wasn't just created for X-Men or X-Men 97. The character is a stalwart in Marvel Comics and has been around for a while. And she lets Magneto go to allow Magneto to do his thing. And wow, Magneto comes out big time.
I mean, what do you do when you have a bunch of technology that is just taking the entire world, hitting everything? You have no idea where any of these Sentinels are because not even the Sentinels know that they're Sentinels. You just go to one of the strongest magnetic points on the planet and you let out a worldwide EMP.
And this is where we get more cameos. We get Omega Red, Silver Samurai, and we get Spider-Man.
Spider-Man is my favorite one.
Oh, big surprise there.
Okay, so I said it last week, and I'm kind of saying it again here. You can so easily get into the other 90s animated shows now and have a revival there. Spider-Man is shown directly here in the show, so you can make that happen. Doctor Doom means you can get the Fantastic Four stuff, and if you have Spider-Man come in, then you can have Spider-Gwen come in.
It does open a door wide open, which is good, I think. And it's unfortunate at the same time because I think you're going to start confusing people, especially the people that have grown up watching the MCU and are confined to that universe. And now you're expanding it to the X-Men universe. And where do the two combine? I know we're into timey-wimey stuff with multiverse and stuff like that, but I think you are going to start confusing some people. That said, you could still bring it all together.
Battle World.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So Wolverine, though, he makes a point, Michelle, on what Magneto does.
Well, the pulse puts all the Sentinels down, darkens the world, but it also means that he's declared war. So we're going to get a big war. And here's my question. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun or not, because it happened because it happens like Wolverine says he's declared war, and then he says, "Where's the professor when we need him?" Then we get a crash, and then we get Xavier. And here's my question: is Xavier on time, or is he too late?
Ew. That's interesting. To me, my X-Men, he says at the back, at the end, right? And did you notice when he said that, Michelle? Did you notice the pictures of the faces of his X-Men that appeared and which ones did not?
Yeah, it was Storm,
Mm-hmm.
Jean,
Mhm.
Scott,
Mhm.
no, Beast.
Yep. Who was not on there? Nightcrawler, Morph,
Gambit.
Gambit, and more importantly, Jubilee was not on there.
Was that cut for time, maybe?
I don't think it was cut for time. I think she has been abducted or, attained, and she has the collar on her now. So I don't even know if he can get to her or not. I don't know how that works, whether his psychic powers can override the mutant restraints. I don't know.
We're just rolling right into the Operation Zero Tolerance storyline here. So if you have that, then Jubilee is one of the first X-Men that you see in that story, full on captured, collared. You will not use your powers. And I think that is a pretty good reason for Xavier not to have been able to reach her.
Well, there are some undertones to this whole thing. I mean, we got a heck of a lot of action. We got some plot moving forward. We have 2 episodes left, but there are some themes in this episode. And one of the themes, Michelle, was a choice.
Kurt being back is amazing. He has this nice little speech about him and Rogue, how they chose to put things in the past. And he says, blood is blood, family is a choice. And that is one of the things about the X-Men that is a running theme with them, that they are a chosen family. They have found their people.
And then, Chris, you brought up a point about standards and practices.
We went through the entire 92 run of the show with, okay, can't really hurt anybody unless they're a robot, because then they're not a living person. And this one, you're still kind of following that in a lot of ways, because the Sentinels are Sentinels, even though they used to be people, kind of still are people. I don't know, though. Like, do you think standards and practice of the early 90s would have let this happen?
No, there was too much slashing of it and dismemberment and stuff like that. Even though once Magneto's pulse went out, it seemed to, I don't know, it wasn't, I don't think it was full on cure, but he detonated the implants, for lack of a better term, in everybody. And at least this is what it appeared to me, that everybody had been fixed from their fight damage, because that's part of what the whole thing is, but they were just laying on the ground. So I think nobody died in the end, but there's, I don't know, there's a potential for a lot of people to have gotten hurt in this. I know there was a lot of damage in this whole thing. And even Lauren, who couldn't be with us today, said, man, I thank God for wealthy benefactors, because I don't think insurance would cover the Blackbird. There's more than just the Blackbird here. I mean, there's the entire downtown area with the mall. There's the mansion. There's that whole town. So yeah, there was a lot of excessive damage here. And this is on top of the Genosha whole thing that happened 2 episodes ago.
It is a lot of people getting attacked and getting hurt. And I mean, not only do I not think that they would let it happen like we saw it, I don't even know if we would have gotten the storyline from it outside of mentioning that it happened, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. This is a more adult themed thing. Now, Lauren had a couple more things that I just want to point out a few things here. First of all, the music throughout the entire thing, especially the classical music during the fighting, that was, I think, epic. It brought out the epicness in what was happening. So that was pretty cool. The mall had a store in it that was the Wasserman store, and that is a reference to the theme song composer, Ron Wasserman. And it's just so many layers here. I'd probably be able to, if I had the time, to watch this over and over and over and find something new in the episode every single time. Because between the animation and the name drops and everything, it's pretty intense as to how they're trying to bring the universe that is X-Men from 92 as well as Marvel Universe into this and tell a good story at the same time. I want to foot stomp that. They're telling a good story. They're taking adaptations from what is in the comics. They're infusing that with the beginnings of what happened in X-Men 92, and they're telling a good story. And that's what really Marvel needs to do. That's what DC needs to do. That's what everybody in Hollywood needs to do. Tell a good story, make it interesting, and then you're going to be able to obtain an audience. If you don't make a good story, people are like, yeah, I don't care. This is a good story.
Definitely.
All right. Do you get either of you have anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to bring up before we move on?
I'm good.
Cable brought up the multiple timelines thing, so I'm hoping that they don't use multiple timelines as a real quick hand wavy fix to stuff. But, until the season ends, I'm going to worry about that.
I love the Camartage reference, though, as they were talking about the Keepers of the Time, basically. I love that, the Camartage reference. They brought that out. And if you hadn't watched the later part of the MCU, you might have not have gotten that if you were just watching X-Men 92. So that's part of what I meant by they're just bringing everything in. It's fantastic. All right, I have a question for everybody. I didn't actually have any answers to this off the top of my head when I came up with it. But the question I had after this episode is, what TV series, could be linear, could be streaming, could be on DVD. What TV series have you watched that was just as epic as this? Because we've had 8 episodes. It's pretty much been epic, especially since Remember It. So do either of you two have any suggestions?
Avatar: The Last Airbender, hands down, easy. The animated one, not the live action.
Okay. I'm looking forward to somebody coming up with a list here because I had nothing to compare. I'm like, okay, this is kind of the pinnacle. It's surprising me. This is so good, is what I was talking about before about the story. An epic series. What is so good that is as good as this, or better? That'd be fine too. If you can make the argument that's something better, I would like to know that. Michelle, do you have anything off the top of your head, or are you as stumped as I am?
The Expanse.
Yeah, it's pretty epic.
Battlestar Galactica. Of course, it didn't really land the ending.
Yeah.
You subtract the ending. Had an epic start.
Yeah, it sure did. And that's the problem with something like Lost, is the ending is so controversial. I don't know if you can throw it in the epicness. But yeah.
You have to give it time to get going, but My Hero Academia, pending an ending, because season 7 is starting up pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd say like the first 2 seasons of Arrow were pretty epic, but the rest of it was not, So.
Well, then you have Attack on Titan.
Okay.
Of course,
I never
the
watched
ending.
it.
Yeah, the ending is, I understood the ending. Some people didn't, but I got it. Anyway.
Right. Well, looking forward to hearing responses to this. Lauren, if you're listening to this, we're looking forward to your response as well. All right, let's move on to last thoughts. Michelle?
We've acknowledged that Magneto is right. Will Xavier.
Interesting. Will the two meet in the next episode, or are we going to get it in the finale?
We got to have the boyfriends meeting.
Chris?
They've done such a good job so far of following comic things, but not following them exactly. So I'm going to spend the next week reading through the Operation Zero Tolerance stuff to finish it up and probably start over just because I feel like it. Just so I can see how closely they're sticking to that.
My last thought in this whole thing is, I think Jubilee was shopping for the wrong thing. She took her boyfriend out and said, you got a trust fund, buy me something. She should have had him buy her own Blackbird. It's time. She needs to be able to pilot her own Blackbird. That's what I'm saying. We'll see what happens. Next time, we're going to talk about X-Men 97 Season 1, Episode 9. Michelle, if people would like to get a hold of us, how are they going to do that?
You can find more out about us on our website, legendsofshield.com. We would love to hear from you. You can do so in our voicemail, 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871. You can join our Discord server at gonnageek.com/Discord. And remember, we are a proud member of the gonnageek.com network.
All right, that's it for this week. Until next time, I'm the producer of the show, Director SP.
I'm Agent Michelle.
And I'm Agent Chris.
See everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.
I think Scott only needs to be allowed to drive convertibles from now on. That was a travesty. They took the roof off a perfectly good Porsche.
Well, when you got to, you got to.
I like the blue. I wish I could have gotten my car in blue like that.
Thank you for listening. The intro music heard on this podcast is Great Marvels of the World by Lynn Publishing, found on pon5.com. The outro music heard on this podcast is Cinematic Trailer by Ed Records, found on audiojungle.net. Other transitional music on this podcast is found on incompetech.com, audiojungle.net, and pon5.com. For more information about this podcast, please visit legendsofshield.com. Excelsior!
A tour of the historic Cape Canaveral sites. It was awesome. And it's, of course, not available to the public. You can sign up for tours at various different times. It's not like you can go down to a tour shop and get a tour. It's very special times. They have open houses like twice a year. Their open house that they had was the Saturday, the day that I left for the spring. But we got an actual behind-the-scenes tour with personal guides and stuff. It was really cool. Saw the site of the United States first satellite launch on Launch Complex, what is now referred to as Launch Complex 26. It's where the Explorer 1 satellite was launched. It's also where Alan B. Shepard was launched. He was the first American in space. Saw Launch Complex 14 and the bunker there. Oh, the bunker at 26 is the original bunker from that original launch.
Ooh.
Way back in 1957 with Explorer 1. And they had some of the original computers in there. They had brought computers in from other sites, but they had like the original console in there. And so there's no screens. You're talking 57. So your screen was a XY 2D plotter. That was your screen.
Wow.
Yeah. It's basically a glorified science experiment. If you take a look at our space program from 1957 to 1963, it was bare bones. It was like a couple of shacks out in the wilderness. There was nothing to it. And then see what we have now. It's pretty amazing. Launch Complex 14 is where John Glenn launched for his first orbital flight. And then there were several other launches from that location. That bunker is more of a hill mound, and it has escape tunnels in it. It has periscopes, it had like 6 periscopes, so you could look at the launch site from the bunker. I mean, there's no windows in it at all. You're talking a mound of dirt, and the only way to see out is these periscopes. So that was pretty cool. We went by the Launch Complex 34, which is where the Apollo 1 fire occurred. We also went by the place where the remnants of the Space Shuttle Challenger have been dumped. They were dumped in a silo, a missile test silo. They were dumped in there, and it's entombed in there. And I think that includes the some of the biological remains. So that was all cool. Most of the launch pads at the Florida location are actually on Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, not on Kennedy Space Center. There's only 3 pads at Kennedy Space Center, and that's the one that launches SLS, and then SpaceX has the other 2. So all the manned stuff that we see and all the SpaceX stuff that's going on right now is there. SpaceX does have some locations on Cape Canaveral. The landing pads for when they bring the boosters back to land are on Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And Blue Origin, their site is on Cape Canaveral. Relativity Space, they're 3D printing a rocket. Yes, you heard that right. They're 3D printing a rocket, and their launch site is there. Moon Express took over an old launch complex, and they're looking at testing out a lunar rover there. I don't know why. I'd rather go out to Arizona for that, but apparently they want to be out in Florida for whatever reason. There's Altus. There's several other commercialized companies that have leased all these space launch complex that were huge back when we were actually doing something in the 60s and the 70s, and they've been sitting fallow for all these years. So about 10 years ago, there was a big push for commercialization of space. That's why we have SpaceX now. And everybody else is kind of catching up. SpaceX ran to get to where they are now, and everybody else is walking, but they're slowly starting to catch up. So the pace of launches on the Florida coast in the next 10 years is going to go up exponentially, and not just from SpaceX. It's all these other companies that are out there too. It's a really fun time to be involved in this. It's as fun of a time now as it was during the Apollo series, the Apollo timeline. So yeah, this is the time if you want to see launches to be living in Florida, because they used to have like 10 a year, and now they have 80, and it's going to grow to 200-300.
Dang.
Ooh.
And if you've never seen, have you either you two seen a launch in person?
No.
If I did, I was too little to remember it.
It's one thing to watch them like on the live streams like SpaceX does. And in actuality, if you see it in person, you're only going to see the first like 90 seconds, because after that, it's gone. So to see the entirety of the launch, it's better to see the stream with the streaming cameras that they have now. But the sound, the roar, the sights, and how fast it's going, you don't get a perspective on that on the camera. All of that combined, it's like the difference between seeing an eclipse and just being on the periphery and then being in totality. It's that level of difference between seeing a launch in person and seeing it stream. It is that cool. Yeah, lots of stuff going on there.
Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2024.